Welcome back. Coinology. A single cent. A coin so small, so common, that it passes from hand to hand without a thought. Yet in 2017, the quiet hum of coin presses inside the United States Mint in Philadelphia marked a moment that collectors would remember for generations. A simple 1-cent piece, struck in bright copper-plated zinc, bore for the first time in American history a small, gleaming letter never before seen on a penny, the letter P. That single mark transformed an ordinary cent into a symbol of celebration, change, and quiet revolution in numismatic history. The 2017 P. Lincoln cent is, at first glance, an everyday coin. But beneath its familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln lies a story of 225 years of minting tradition, national pride, and human craftsmanship condensed into a disc barely 19 millimeters wide. Picture the scene in early 2017, cold winter air settling over Philadelphia, the oldest mint facility in the country buzzing with precision machinery. Technicians in white gloves feed coils of copper-plated zinc through automated presses. Each blank planchet is about 2.5 grams in weight, shimmering faintly pink under the fluorescent lights. The sound of steel dies striking metal echoes through the minting floor, thousands of sharp claps every minute. Out of those machines spill endless rows of tiny copper coins, fresh and brilliant, each carrying the face of a president who died more than a century and a half earlier. But this time, just below the date 2017, rests a mint mark that tells a new story. For over 2 centuries, coins from the Philadelphia Mint bore no mint mark at all. Collectors knew their origin only by context and tradition. Yet to honor the Mint's 225th anniversary, the director authorized a single, historic change, the addition of the P. In that moment, the anonymous penny of Philadelphia finally signed its name. The coin itself seems simple. On the obverse, Lincoln's right-facing profile, sharp, thoughtful, carved by sculptor Victor David Brenner more than a century earlier in 1909, captures the enduring spirit of the 16th president. The word liberty stands beside him, a reminder of the principles he fought to preserve. Just above, the familiar phrase, "In God we trust." Below, the date 2017, and to its right, the newly added P. On the reverse, the Union Shield design introduced in 2010 continues its run. 13 vertical stripes rise toward a single horizontal banner inscribed E Pluribus Unum, symbolizing one nation made from many states. Across the face of the shield stretches a bold scroll bearing the single word 1 cent. The imagery is simple, patriotic, and deeply American. The coin's composition, though, tells a more modern story. Since 1982, the U.S. Mint has made cents not from pure copper but from zinc, 97.5% zinc with a thin copper coating amounting to only about 2.5% of its mass. The shift was born of necessity. Rising copper prices made the traditional composition too expensive. And yet, despite that change, the copper color endures, maintaining the illusion of continuity that collectors and the public both cherished. In the world of coin collecting, history often hides in the smallest details. The weight, precisely 2.5 grams. The diameter, 19.05 millimeters. The plain edge, unreeded and smooth to the touch. The metal ratio, a scientific compromise between tradition and economy. All of these technical aspects may seem mundane, yet each tells of decisions, politics, and the balancing act between art and finance that defines the Mint's daily life. The 2017 P-Cent's journey began not in metal but in conversation within the walls of the Mint's engravers' offices, where historians and technicians gathered to discuss how best to mark a 225-year legacy. They could have minted a commemorative dollar or a medal, but instead they chose the humblest denomination of all. It was a symbolic choice. The coin that every American touches, that children drop into piggy banks and vending machines, would carry the anniversary mark. In choosing the penny, the Mint honored not wealth or rarity but ubiquity, the shared everyday connection between citizens and their nation's currency. Millions of these coins began their life in the presses, billions more followed. Officially, more than 4.6 billion 2017 P. Lincoln cents were struck, an astronomical number that seems to deny rarity. Yet collectors knew instantly that this was no ordinary year. The P Mint mark meant that every cent from Philadelphia was part of history, and many began saving them straight from circulation. Some were preserved in mint sets, sealed in plastic with brilliant uncirculated luster. Others went straight into pockets, purses, and cash drawers, beginning a quiet circulation that continues to this day. The sculptor, born in Lithuania and trained in New York, captured Lincoln's humanity rather than idealized heroism. The resulting profile was so lifelike, so intimate, that it instantly became iconic. Over the decades, as the United States grew and changed, Lincoln's portrait remained. From World War I through the Great Depression, from moon landings to digital revolutions, the same face watched from every pocket. By 2017, that unbroken lineage had lasted 108 years, a record unmatched in U.S. coinage. And now, in the Mint's 225th year, the decision to mark Philadelphia's pennies with a P echoed Brenner's original gesture of commemoration. It tied the present to the past, giving collectors a tangible link across generations of American craftsmanship. In a sense, every 2017 P cent is both ordinary and monumental, a coin that passes through gas stations and grocery stores, yet also tells the story of a nation's endurance. Its value, in metal, remains 1 cent, but in symbolism, it represents billions of transactions, memories, and quiet histories. Some collectors say that when you hold a bright uncirculated 2017 P penny, you're touching not just copper and zinc but time itself. Market excitement soon followed. Early rolls sold online for inflated prices, sometimes $20 or $30 per roll as demand surged. Speculators predicted future scarcity, though with billions minted, true rarity lies not in quantity but in quality. Still, certain error varieties, off-center strikes, double dies, die chips near Lincoln's Eye or the Shield, commanded strong interest. Grading services such as PCGS and NGC began receiving submissions from across the country. A flawless specimen graded MS70 red could reach astounding values at auction, occasionally touching four-figure sums. Stories spread across coin collecting channels about lucky finds in pocket change worth hundreds, even thousands of dollars. And as often happens in numismatics, myth blended with fact. Rumors of million-dollar examples circulated online, adding mystique to the small copper coin. Yet behind every exaggeration lies a kernel of truth. Condition, rarity, and human fascination can indeed transform a cent into a treasure. Beyond the marketplace, the 2017 P cent also represents a subtle shift in national identity. In an era dominated by digital payment, when coins seem almost obsolete, the decision to commemorate the mint's anniversary on physical currency was an act of faith in tangible history. Each coin serves as a miniature monument, affordable, accessible, democratic. When you think about it, billions of citizens unknowingly carried a piece of numismatic history in their pockets that year. Most spent them without a second glance, but a few noticed the tiny P and wondered what it meant. That curiosity, the spark that leads someone to learn, to collect, to preserve, is what keeps numismatics alive. The Philadelphia Mint itself stands as a testament to endurance. Established in 1792, it was the first federal building authorized under the U.S. Constitution. Its purpose, to create a reliable national coinage and free the young republic from dependence on foreign currency. Over the centuries, it has relocated, modernized, and mechanized, but its mission remains the same. In 2017, as part of its anniversary celebrations, the Mint opened exhibitions, released special medals, and honored the employees whose craftsmanship defines American coinage. The P Mint mark on the cent was both a gift to collectors and a quiet salute to those workers. When the director announced that the mark would appear for 1 year only, collectors took note. It was a one-time symbol, destined to disappear in 2018 when the traditional mint markless Philadelphia cent returned. As we look closer at the coin, even its imperfections tell stories. Under magnification, you might see microscopic flow lines, tiny waves in the metal surface created as it fills the die cavities under immense pressure. Around the rim, delicate beading frames Lincoln's face. On high-grade examples, every strand of hair is crisp, every letter sharp. The story of the 2017 P Lincoln cent does not end with its mintage. Its journey into the hands of collectors and everyday citizens opened new chapters in America's relationship with its smallest coin. After the first weeks of circulation, word spread across social media and numismatic forums that something unusual was appearing in pocket change. People posted photos of bright new pennies with a mysterious letter P below the date. For most Americans, it was the first time they had ever seen a mint mark on a cent from Philadelphia. Curiosity became conversation, and conversation became discovery. Viewers of coin hunting channels paused to tilt their coins beneath desk lamps, wondering if they too held a tiny piece of minting history inside the Philadelphia facility. Employees followed the excitement with quiet pride. For them, the P had always marked their work on other denominations, nickels, dimes, quarters, but never on the humble cent. The machines continued their rhythm, pressing thousands of blanks each minute, yet there was a feeling of celebration in the air. Engineers adjusted die pressure, monitored die wear, and replaced collars to ensure consistent strikes. Each coin that rolled from the press bore not only Lincoln's face but also the silent signatures of dozens of artisans whose precision and dedication made the design possible. The new mint mark felt like recognition, a small letter honoring generations of craftsmen and women who had worked anonymously for centuries. Numismatists soon began to document every known variety of the 2017 P. Some coins displayed subtle doubling on Lincoln's eye or earlobe, others tiny die chips that looked like raised tears or warts on the president's cheek. Under magnification, these imperfections revealed the living, mechanical nature of minting itself. Steel and copper in conversation, pressure and temperature leaving fingerprints on metal. A double die obverse could bring $30 or $40 in collector circles, while spectacular off-center strikes or broad strikes fetched hundreds. But for many, the thrill was not monetary. It was the idea of witnessing minting history unfold in real time, of catching a once-in-a-lifetime variation in the moment of its creation. By mid-2017, grading companies reported an influx of submissions. Thousands of cents arrived in padded envelopes, each carefully labeled 2017 P with the sender's hope sealed inside. Professional graders, under white light and magnification, inspected surfaces for contact marks, luster, and strike sharpness. Billions may exist, but only a microscopic fraction survive untouched, with immaculate surfaces preserved from the moment of striking. Time and circulation erode perfection, and perfection commands its own economy. The 2017 P reminded the collecting world that even in an age of mass production, beauty and precision still hold worth. At the same time, historians looked backward, seeing echoes of earlier transitions in the penny's long life. They remembered 1909, when Brenner's design first appeared. They recalled 1959, when the reverse changed to the Lincoln Memorial under designer Frank Gasparo. They noted 2009, when 4 special reverses marked Lincoln's bicentennial. And then 2010, when the Union Shield replaced the memorial, symbolizing unity after division. Side by side, the difference was striking. The older coins seemed anonymous, their origin known only by absence. The 2017 P declared its birthplace proudly. Museums and educational exhibits used this comparison to explain the evolution of U.S. mint marks, how New Orleans, Denver, San Francisco, and West Point each left their own tiny symbol of identity, while Philadelphia remained unmarked until this quiet revolution. In lectures and YouTube documentaries, experts described the P as a whisper from the oldest mint to the nation it serves. Meanwhile, the physical coins began their wanderings across the United States. A roll shipped from Philadelphia might find its way to grocery stores in Texas, parking meters in Oregon, or the cash drawers of small cafes in Florida. Each coin became a traveling ambassador of the mint's anniversary. Some remained uncirculated, tucked into jars and collections, others rubbed smooth in daily use. As they circulated, copper plating began to tone. Bright red surfaces turned to mellow orange, then to chocolate brown, recording in their changing color the slow oxidation of time. A 2017 P pulled from circulation today may already bear fingerprints, scratches, and the faint dullness of life lived in the open world. Economists and cultural commentators saw symbolism in that wear. The penny, long debated for its cost and usefulness, continued to embody the paradox of permanence in an age of disposability. Politicians proposed eliminating it, consumer groups argued for rounding transactions to the nearest nickel. Yet Americans clung to their smallest coin with sentimental loyalty. It represented childhood allowances, charity boxes, lucky pennies found on sidewalks. The 2017 P, arriving during this ongoing debate, seemed to argue quietly for continuity, proof that tradition still matters even when practicality falters. The mint's own data from that year tell an extraordinary story. Production lines operated nearly non-stop, striking over 4 billion 2017 P cents alongside billions from Denver and San Francisco. The total weight of copper and zinc used reached into thousands of tons. To visualize it, imagine freight trains stretching miles, each car loaded with gleaming pennies. When poured together, their combined metal would shine like a river of copper light. Yet within that mass, each coin remains individual, stamped with microscopic differences that make numismatics so endlessly fascinating. No two are truly identical, each die, each moment of pressure, each vibration of the press leaves subtle variations, a fingerprint of machinery frozen in metal. In collectors' homes across the country, the 2017 P sparked conversations about preservation. Should one keep rolls sealed, or open them to search for errors? Should they be stored in tubes, flips, or albums? On online forums, heated discussions unfolded about the best methods to prevent spotting or discoloration. Some recommended inert mylar flips, others swore by vacuum-sealed bags with silica gel. Beneath these technical debates lay a shared affection, a sense of stewardship over a small but meaningful piece of national heritage. Television programs and YouTube videos followed suit, each offering their own spin on the story. Some emphasized the coin's monetary potential, showing auction results and high-grade examples. Others focused on history, walking viewers through the evolution of minting technology. Many combined both, blending excitement with education. Viewers who had never before looked closely at a penny began checking their change, rediscovering the hidden artistry of everyday currency. The phrase "check your 2017 P pennies" trended briefly in search engines, a reminder that even common coins can capture the imagination of millions. As months turned into years, the frenzy calmed, but appreciation deepened. The 2017 P settled into its role as a cornerstone of modern cent collecting. Every new collector, assembling a basic Lincoln cent album, inevitably encountered it, the lone Philadelphia issue proudly bearing its mint mark. Teachers used it to spark curiosity in students, grandparents passed it to grandchildren as a symbol of continuity. The story of that one letter became part of American folklore, folded into tales of rare 1943 copper cents and 1955 double dies. Each generation, it seems, finds its own coin of wonder, and for many today, that coin is the 2017 P. The market, however, continued to surprise. In 2020 and 2021, as interest in hobbies surged during long months of isolation, coin collecting experienced a renaissance. Online auctions recorded renewed bidding wars for high-grade modern cents. Perfectly preserved 2017 P examples certified by PCGS or NGC once again climbed in value, some exceeding $1,000 at peak moments. Though far from the rumored million-dollar myths of internet headlines, these prices demonstrated how enthusiasm and storytelling can inflate value beyond material worth. A cent costs less than 2 cents to make, yet in the alchemy of passion, history, and rarity, it becomes a vessel for meaning far greater than its face value. Beyond financial worth, the coin also became a study object for metallurgists and mint engineers. They analyzed how zinc cores and copper plating behaved under environmental conditions, how microscopic pits formed, how the plating could blister when adhesion faltered. Each technical paper added layers of understanding about durability and production efficiency. The 2017 P, because of its enormous. The years rolled forward, and the 2017 P cent aged with quiet dignity. The first rush of excitement had faded, but beneath that surface calm the coin's legend kept growing, deepening like patina on copper. Every serious collector who built a Lincoln cent set paused at 2017 and remembered the strange, beautiful anomaly that briefly broke tradition. Dealers who once dismissed modern issues now found themselves fielding questions about die varieties, luster, and full red designations. The tiny P, once overlooked by the casual spender, had become a permanent subject in numismatic journals, a footnote turned focal point. Auction houses began compiling records. Some of the earliest certified pieces reappeared, resold at higher prices, their provenance documented like fine art. A perfect MS-70 example crossed the block in 2022 for nearly $2,000, not because of scarcity but because collectors had come to see perfection itself as a form of rarity. Coins with minor die breaks, the so-called BIE variety showing a tiny raised bar between the letters B and E of Liberty, found dedicated followings. You could open a catalog and see line after line of 2017 P Lincoln Shield cent, die crack variety, each one a fingerprint of that immense production year. The market had matured, shifting from hype to heritage. Meanwhile, the broader world changed. Cashless payments spread faster, self-checkout kiosks multiplied, and many young people carried no coins at all. Yet the penny persisted, partly through inertia, partly through affection. The U.S. Mint continued to strike billions annually, though legislators debated its future. In hearings, economists cited the cent's cost and redundancy, while cultural historians defended it as a national icon. Through those debates, the 2017 P often surfaced as an example of why the penny still mattered. It could still surprise the nation, still unite people in curiosity. If a single small letter could capture headlines, surely the coin itself still carried symbolic weight. Collectors guarding rolls of 2017 P cents noticed subtle changes in their appearance. After several years, natural oxidation darkened some surfaces to reddish-brown. Those stored in airtight tubes retained their fiery color, glowing like tiny embers when opened under light. Others, exposed to air, took on rainbow-toning violet, gold, sea-green accidents of chemistry that transformed industrial metal into miniature art. In the market, these naturally toned coins commanded premiums. Beauty had found its own currency. Photographers captured them in macro detail, each swirl of color like a sunrise across a copper planet. Education programs expanded around the story. The Mint's outreach teams used the 2017 P as an entry point for lessons in history and metallurgy. In classrooms, teachers passed around examples, inviting students to find the Mint mark and then explaining its meaning. For children born that same year, the coin became a tangible link to their own beginnings, a cent minted in the year they first opened their eyes to the world. Years later, some would still carry one as a keepsake, rubbed smooth by time but heavy with sentiment. In the numismatic community, debate turned toward preservation ethics. Should collectors dip and polish modern coins to preserve brilliance, or leave natural toning untouched? Experts warned that overcleaning destroyed microscopic surface flow lines, the delicate textures that create luster. Panels at coin conventions discuss storage environments, humidity control, and the chemistry of PVC plastic. The 2017 P, widely available and inexpensive, became a perfect case study, a safe coin for beginners to learn the discipline of conservation. Through it, a new generation learned patience, the art of leaving history undisturbed. Some stories grew mythic. Rumors spread of error coins sold for astronomical sums, whispers of specimens with doubled legends fetching $1.7 million, though no verified sale ever matched those figures. Still, the tales persisted, feeding imagination. Every myth begins with a spark of truth. Real high-grade examples had indeed sold for thousands, and the internet's echo chamber multiplied those numbers until they glowed like modern folklore. In a way, those exaggerations became part of the coin's mystique, the way the 1913 Liberty nickel or 1943 copper cent entered legend through whispers before facts. Museums curated displays marking the Mint's 225-year legacy, placing the 2017 P alongside earlier milestones, a 1793 chain cent, a 1909 SVDB, a 1959 memorial reverse. Visitors traced the progression of design and technology, seeing how the humble penny had mirrored the nation's own evolution. Beside those earlier pieces, the 2017 P looked almost futuristic, its surfaces laser-polished, its strike uniform and exact. Yet the story told by curators was not of machines but of continuity, a single denomination that had carried Abraham Lincoln's likeness longer than most nations have existed. Numismatists writing for scholarly journals analyzed production data in detail. They examined press calibration records, planchet sourcing, and die life expectancy. They noted that the introduction of the P coincided with subtle updates in die steel composition, extending die life and improving consistency. In that sense, the 2017 P marked not just an anniversary but a triumph. Some found errors they had missed, small die cracks along the rim, slight misalignments that now held added charm. Online marketplaces filled again with listings, not of speculative fortune but of quiet appreciation. 2017 P Lincoln Cent, beautiful red luster, a piece of history. The market stabilized at modest but steady prices, proving that fascination endures even when frenzy fades. Economists studying collector behavior noted an interesting phenomenon: the 2017 P had increased engagement across demographics. Young collectors drawn by social media hype stayed to learn about minting history. Older hobbyists found renewed energy in explaining its significance. Coin clubs reported membership growth, partly credited to that single cent. The coin had become what sociologists call a gateway artifact, an object that leads people into deeper cultural participation. Few modern issues had achieved that effect. In 2025, when the coin reached its 8th anniversary, commemorative articles appeared in numismatic magazines reflecting on its place in history. Writers compared it to transitional issues like the 1943 steel cent or the 1982 copper to zinc changeover. They concluded that while the 2017 P was not rare, it was singular, a deliberate punctuation mark in the long sentence of American coinage. Its real worth, they argued, lay in what it represented, a moment when the nation looked back across 225 years and chose to honor continuity rather than novelty. The numbers tell part of the story, but not all. The official mintage, over 4.6 billion, seems immense, yet the number of preserved mint state examples remains relatively small compared to total production. As circulation wears them away, unhandled survivors become scarcer. Future generations may find bright 2017 P cents increasingly uncommon, their pristine surfaces replaced by dull, brown memories of use. In time, that natural attrition will give even ordinary specimens quiet rarity. A century from now, when cent collecting becomes a study of history rather than hobby, the 2017 P will still gleam in albums as a symbol of the last great flourish of physical coinage. Collectors speculate gently about its long-term value. Will it ever rival the great rarities? Probably not. Rarity born of design choice cannot compete with rarity born of accident. But its historical importance ensures enduring interest, and its story ensures emotional worth. Some appraisers already describe it as the gateway modern classic, predicting that top-grade examples will remain desirable anchors for future registry sets. In that sense, its legacy is secure not through price but through permanence. Beyond collecting circles, artists and writers found inspiration in the coin. Poets used it as metaphor for identity, a small mark that changes everything yet goes unnoticed by most. Visual artists incorporated the P into sculptures exploring the idea of anonymity and recognition. Musicians used macro photographs of the coin as album art, the copper surface like a landscape of light and shadow. Thus, the coin transcended its economic function entirely, entering the realm of culture and imagination. Perhaps the most touching tributes came from ordinary people who discovered meaning in its story. A father giving his child a lucky penny before the first day of school, explaining that this one was special because it carried a letter for Philadelphia, the birthplace of American independence. A retired. Years moved quietly, but the presence of the 2017 P coin never faded from the collective consciousness. In quiet collections, in sealed plastic holders, in forgotten change jars, it waited, each piece a silent testament to the year America paused to remember where its money, its symbols, and its pride were born. Time has a way of layering meaning onto metal, and the 2017 P, once a simple curiosity, was slowly turning into something else, a mirror reflecting the spirit of an entire minting tradition. Historians began to write about it in new ways. They no longer discussed just the numbers or mint marks. Instead, they wrote of what it meant that the mint had finally placed its own identity on a coin after more than 2 centuries of silent anonymity. The letter P stood as more than a designation of origin, it became a mark of self-awareness, a whisper from the craftsmen of Philadelphia saying, "We are still here, and we remember who we are." For those who handled the coin, that single letter transformed routine change into a small moment of connection across generations. The city of Philadelphia itself embraced this subtle renaissance. Local exhibitions began displaying the mint's evolution from hand-struck copper to automated perfection. Visitors could trace the lineage from the days of horse-powered presses to the modern marvels of computer-guided dies. In glass cases, side by side, lay the earliest large cents of the 18th century and the 2017 P, both radiating the same emblematic profile of Abraham Lincoln, one large and rough, the other precise and modern. Between them stretched a timeline of a nation's growth, its triumphs, and its imperfections carved into metal. Lincoln's image remained unchanged through it all. The sculpted gaze of the 16th president had become one of the most reproduced portraits in human history, yet its meaning evolved with each new generation. To early collectors, it symbolized unity after Civil War. To those living in the digital century, it symbolized endurance, a reminder that some values cannot be replaced by screens or algorithms. The 2017 P, shining with that same profile, served as a conversation between past and present. It asked a quiet question: how much of what we build today will still carry meaning in another 100 years? Economists, too, found themselves contemplating this coin. The irony was impossible to ignore: a 1-cent piece costing nearly 2 cents to make, produced by the billions, yet valued by collectors far beyond its face. It had become both an argument against and a defense for the penny's existence. On one hand, it represented inefficiency in modern economics; on the other, it embodied the emotional economy of a people unwilling to let go of tradition. The 2017 P lived at that crossroads, between logic and love, between balance sheets and memories. In the basements of small-town libraries and the backrooms of coin clubs, the conversation continued. Veteran collectors shared stories of the first day they noticed the mint mark under magnification, of how the discovery reignited their fascination after years of routine. Teenagers listened with wide eyes, realizing that even something as common as a cent could hold the thrill of discovery. Many of them started to collect, beginning with rolls of 2017 P cents from their local banks. These new enthusiasts learned patience, how to search for double dies, how to read die polish lines, how to recognize full red brilliance. What began as a hobby turned into stewardship of history. Beyond numismatics, the coin story found its way into classrooms and documentaries, podcasts, and museums. Its narrative bridged disciplines: history, economics, art, and technology. One could trace through it the evolution of American industry, the perseverance of national symbols, and the subtle beauty of human craftsmanship. Each struck surface contained microscopic ridges formed under immense pressure, yet when magnified, those ridges resembled landscapes, valleys and peaks of copper and zinc frozen mid-motion. Every cent was a miniature sculpture of energy and precision. By the time the decade closed, collectors and historians realized they were witnessing the last great age of physical coinage. Debit cards, mobile pay systems, and digital tokens were rewriting how people interacted with value. The penny's days, they said, were numbered. Yet the 2017 P stood defiantly against that prediction, not because it halted the future, but because it embodied something no digital transaction could replicate: the tangible act of holding history in your palm. You could feel its weight, trace its texture, and know that thousands of others had done the same. It was proof that meaning, like metal, endures through touch. The coin became an unlikely symbol of human presence in an increasingly virtual age. Artists began using the 2017 P in installations, exploring the tension between the physical and the digital. Some embedded the coin in resin, preserving its copper sheen forever. Others filmed it under changing light, the surface reflecting a kaleidoscope of colors, a visual metaphor for memory itself. Each project captured the same unspoken truth: we still crave permanence, even as the world rushes toward the transient. Collectors who once stored boxes of these coins began to treat them differently. They were no longer just investments or placeholders, they were mementos of a vanishing era. A father would hand a 2017 P cent to his child, saying, "This one is special. It's from the year the mint finally signed its name." That story passed from mouth to mouth, across families and friends, each retelling adding warmth. No matter how advanced technology became, no matter how intangible money grew, that simple story carried emotional currency far greater than any digital balance. Meanwhile, the value of exceptional specimens quietly climbed. In high-grade certified holders, pristine 2017 P cents began commanding prices far above their humble origin. A perfect red coin won the government, and that tiny P was their signature. It was acknowledgement. In interviews, some described feeling as if centuries of silent craftsmanship had finally been recognized. The coin gave a voice to the invisible hands that shape every symbol we carry in our pockets. As the world approached the late 2020s, scholars began to compare the 2017 P cent to other turning points in numismatic history: the 1909 SVDB that marked Lincoln's debut, the 1943 steel cent born of wartime necessity, the 1982 transition that divided copper and zinc. Each of those coins represented change, and each became immortal in its own way. The 2017 P joined that lineage, but its change was quieter, more reflective. It didn't emerge from crisis or innovation, it emerged from remembrance. It was the mint's way of looking back, of saying, "We have come far, but we have not forgotten our beginning." By 2030, as inflation and policy debates reignited discussions of discontinuing the cent, historians defended its preservation with renewed passion. They pointed to the 2017 P as evidence that the smallest things can still unite a diverse nation in shared curiosity. When people discovered that tiny letter, they experienced a moment of wonder, a reminder that discovery still existed in a world where most answers came from screens. That spark of wonder, they argued, had value beyond economics. In quiet homes, collectors still sifted through change, just as they always had. The sound of coins clinking into a jar remained comforting, grounding. Somewhere in that pile, a 2017 P would catch the light, and for a brief moment, the collector would remember the story behind it: the pride of the Philadelphia Mint, the 225th Anniversary person who picked up a 2017 P and noticed that single P joined a chain of awareness stretching back to the founding of the mint itself. It was as if the coin whispered, "I was made by hands that remember where it all began," and in that whisper lies the reason collectors still treasure it, not merely for its potential worth, though some examples now command prices that defy logic, but for what it represents. It is proof that even the smallest object, born in billions, can carry a story that outlasts centuries. The 2017 p-cent, weighing only 2.5 grams, has become a monument in miniature, a reminder that history often hides not in monuments or archives, but in the pocket of an ordinary person. The legend continues, growing with each retelling, each rediscovery, each reflection. Years continued their steady rhythm, and as each one passed, the 2017 P Lincoln cent seemed to gather more meaning, as if the weight of its own story pressed quietly into the surface of every surviving coin. It was no longer just a curiosity struck in honor of an anniversary, it had become a living thread connecting generations, a reminder that even the smallest object could hold the soul of a nation. In quiet rooms where collectors worked under magnifying lamps, the glow of light on copper still felt sacred. They would lift a 2017 P between soft-tipped tweezers, tilt it slowly, and watch the way the light danced across Lincoln's face. The fine engraving lines, almost invisible to conversations among numismatists. Some said the coin carried good luck, others claimed that finding one in circulation after so many years meant prosperity was near. There were tales of collectors who discovered flawless examples in pocket change and later sold them for thousands, stories embellished with awe and hope. Myths grew like children would pass it from hand to hand, the copper cool against their fingers, the surface worn smooth by countless journeys. They were touching continuity, though they could not yet name it. Outside the world of collecting, the cent's deeper symbolism began to attract philosophers and artists alike. Writers spoke of it as a meditation on permanence, the idea that meaning can dwell in the humblest places. Painters reproduced its image on massive canvases, transforming the tiny portrait of Lincoln into vast studies of light and shadow. Poets found in it a metaphor for humility, a nation's smallest coin bearing the face of its greatest leader. Each interpretation added a new layer to the story, proving that art, like money, gains value from the emotions it carries. Numismatists, ever methodical, continued their examinations. They studied die rotations, strike pressure, and planchet variations. Some discovered subtle varieties, faint doubling of letters, slight die deterioration lines, that added new chapters to the growing catalog of 2017 P research. Others analyzed toning patterns, learning how humidity and temperature shaped color over years of storage. There were debates in journals about whether rainbow tone examples should be graded higher for beauty or left unaltered as natural phenomena. Even among such technical discussions, there was poetry, the belief that copper was alive, that it aged like skin, that it remembered every breath of air it met. Meanwhile, economic change accelerated. Many nations phased out their smallest coins, rounding prices to the nearest 5 or 10 cents. The US continued to debate, but sentimentality prevailed. The penny endured, not out of necessity, but because it still mattered to people. It was woven into language and ritual: a penny for your thoughts, a lucky penny, a penny saved is a penny earned. These expressions had become more than idioms, they were cultural fossils of a time when value could be held, not just displayed on a screen, and so the 2017 P remained a quiet cornerstone of that endurance. It symbolized the last era when minting was both industrial and intimate, when coins still bore the weight of tradition even as machines perfected their surfaces. Collectors knew this and guarded their rolls with reverence. They sealed them in inert containers, placed desiccant packs beside them, and stored them in vaults away from humidity and sunlight. They were not just saving coins, they were saving the memory of touch, of craftsmanship, of the hum of presses echoing in Philadelphia's stone halls. The city itself became a pilgrimage site for enthusiasts. Visitors stood outside the Philadelphia Mint, looking up at the building where billions of those small copper-plated discs had been born. They could hear, faintly, the rhythmic thunder of modern presses from inside, a mechanical heartbeat continuing a tradition begun in 1792. Tour guides would tell the story of the 225th anniversary issue, how the decision to add the P had been simple yet monumental, how it reconnected the mint to its birthplace. For those listening, it was not just history, it was poetry cast in metal. Some visitors brought their own 2017 P cents to the gates, holding them in their palms as if presenting offerings. They imagined the journey each coin might have taken, from the rolling of zinc sheets to the cutting of blanks, through the heat of annealing furnaces, to the stamping of Lincoln's image under 75 tons of pressure. Each step was a chapter in a silent biography of craftsmanship. And when those coins left the presses, scattered across the nation through banks and pockets, they carried that biography with them, unread by most, but inscribed nonetheless. Collectors who had once been driven by rarity began to speak differently about value. They talked not about grades or prices, but about meaning. They said a coin's worth lay in its story, in the human moments it represented. The 2017 P had taught them that. It had reminded them that even in a world obsessed with scarcity, beauty could be found in abundance. A billion coins, each identical in design, yet each capable of inspiring awe. That realization softened the competitive edge of collecting, transforming it into something closer to reflection. In time, the coin began to take on a near spiritual aura. Some saw it as a symbol of renewal, the rebirth of attention to detail in an age of mass production. Others viewed it as an emblem of national humility, a reminder that the United States, despite its power, still honored the smallest pieces of its own story. And there were those who simply loved it for what it was, a small, gleaming circle of copper that caught the light in just the right way and made them feel connected to something vast and enduring. As the 2030s dawned, digital currencies dominated transactions, yet collectors flourished. Auctions went online, coins sold across continents with a click, but the 2017 P remained stubbornly tactile. Buyers wanted to hold it, not just own it. They wanted to hear the faint ring when it dropped onto a wooden desk, to feel its cool surface warm slowly against the skin. In that sensory exchange, people rediscovered what money was meant to be, not just a medium of trade, but a medium of memory, and so the legend of the 2017 P persisted. Its market value fluctuated, sometimes high, sometimes modest, but its symbolic worth only deepened. To some, it was worth a few dollars, to others, it was priceless. A handful of extraordinary examples, brilliant, untouched, preserved in perfect condition, rose in value to tens of thousands, then hundreds of thousands in speculation. Myths of million-dollar sales surfaced again, more legend than fact, but no one seemed to mind. What mattered was that the penny had achieved something money rarely does: it had transcended its own denomination. Collectors often spoke of it in hushed tones at conventions, standing before glass cases filled with brilliant red coins under spotlights. They would lean in, point at the mint mark, and whisper stories as if discussing a sacred relic. Every collector had a personal memory attached, a first discovery, a family heirloom, a roll opened after years of patience. Each story was different, yet all shared the same heartbeat of fascination. In these gatherings, one could sense the deeper truth that had always defined numismatics, the desire not merely to possess, but to preserve. Every 2017 P cent in those cases was a gesture against forgetting. Against the erasure of the physical by the digital. Against the loss of wonder in a world moving too fast. The collectors knew it, even if they didn't say it aloud. They were guardians of the tangible past. As the years continued, museums began preparing centennial exhibits in advance, plans for displays in 2117 marking the coin's 100th anniversary. Curators imagined showing side-by-side specimens, one fresh from 2017, another aged a century, its copper dimmed but dignified. Visitors of that future age, perhaps living in a world without coins, would stand before the display and read about the mint that had once struck billions of physical tokens to symbolize value. They would see the small letter P and realize that it represented more than a city. It represented the human impulse to sign one's work, to say, "I was here," or that, in the end, became the coin's greatest legacy. It taught that worth is not only measured in dollars or rarity, but in recognition, the recognition of effort, of history, of identity. It taught that even a penny can speak, if only you listen closely enough. The 2017 P Lincoln cent continues to circulate quietly in drawers, jars, and collections, whispering its story to anyone patient enough to hold it to the light. Its glow, though small, car. The sound of time never stops. It moves softly, almost imperceptibly, like the faint hum of a mint press echoing through memory. And as time passes, the meaning of a coin, especially one so humble as the 2017 P cent, deepens, stretches, and intertwines with the story of the people who once touched it. It is strange to think that something weighing just 2.5 grams can hold the echoes of millions of lives. Every 2017 P cent has been part of a human story: a tip left on a counter, a wish cast into a fountain, a first lesson in saving, a small act of generosity between strangers. Each coin carries invisible fingerprints, traces of journeys we can only imagine. But when you hold one, you hold more than metal. You hold the passage of hands, the breath of moments, the collective heartbeat of a nation that has used these little discs of copper to measure its everyday hopes for centuries. Abraham Lincoln's face still watches from the obverse, solemn and eternal. His image has seen the transformation of a country, from fields to factories, from horse-drawn carriages to electric cars, from handwritten letters to digital code. Yet through all of it, he remains steadfast, thoughtful, a reminder of ideals that survive even when the world changes its skin. His presence on the cent is not accidental. It is the embodiment of endurance, of unity, of moral courage. The 2017 P carries that endurance forward into a century where meaning often dissolves in the rush of technology. It stands as a quiet anchor in a storm of speed. While people swipe, tap, and scan their way through life, the cent waits in drawers and jars, asking silently to be held, to be felt, to be remembered. There is a kind of peace in its simplicity and unspoken assurance that some things need no updating. Historians began to see the coin as a philosophical artifact, not merely a monetary one. It represented something that could not be replicated digitally: the tactile truth of value. When you touch a coin, you feel the bridge between labor and reward, between creation and exchange. It is the physical proof that someone somewhere worked, created, contributed. Every cent, including the 2017 P, is a compressed record of human effort: the mining of ore, the refinement of metal, the precision of minting, the distribution through countless hands. It is an ecosystem of value made visible. Philosophers of money began to speak of the 2017 P as the last whisper of tangible currency. They wrote that when coins disappear completely, society will lose more than metal: it will lose a sensory connection to worth. The cent, in their view, is a teacher. It teaches patience. It teaches gratitude. It reminds us that value begins small, that every fortune starts with a single cent, and perhaps that is why people continue to keep them, even when they are told they are worthless. In glass jars on windowsills, in kitchen drawers, in car cup holders, millions of cents rest quietly, waiting. They are no longer needed, yet no one can quite let them go. Because somewhere inside, we understand, what is useless in commerce may still be priceless in memory. Collectors speak of this coin with reverence, not only because of its mint mark or its mintage, but because of what it represents, a bridge between centuries. When they hold a 2017p, they feel both the past and the future. They imagine the first coin struck in 1793, rough and imperfect, and the advanced presses of today that stamp billions with flawless precision. They realize that though technology has changed, the human desire to create something lasting remains the same, and perhaps that desire is what makes the 2017 piece so extraordinary. It is a simple object that refuses to fade. It continues to whisper to anyone willing to listen, you are part of something larger. You come from hands that built and dreamed. That whisper travels across time, from the artisans who polished the dies in Philadelphia, to the workers who packed the rolls, to the collectors who now guard them like tiny treasures. There are stories, quiet, beautiful stories, of people who found meaning in that whisper. A grandmother who gave her grandson a 2017p penny for luck on his first day of school. A veteran who carried one in his pocket during deployment, a reminder of home. A young collector who discovered one in circulation and fell in love with numismatics, beginning a lifelong journey of curiosity and care. These stories, unrecorded but countless, are what make the coin truly priceless. Economists might laugh at the idea of a cent worth millions, but they misunderstand what worth means. Worth is not always measured in currency, it is measured in connection. When a coin captures imagination, when it binds generations through story and symbol, it surpasses its face value entirely. That is the real miracle of the 2017p. It has transformed from an instrument of commerce into a vessel of culture. Over time, the few pristine examples, preserved in untouched red brilliance, will become relics. Their surfaces, untouched by air, will shimmer as they did on the day they were struck. Those who gaze upon them in the future will see more than a coin, they will see a message, a reminder that craftsmanship and meaning once mattered deeply. In an age where everything was becoming virtual, the people of 2017 still made something real, something that could last for centuries. Imagine 100 years from now. The world is almost entirely cashless. Children read about coins in history books and visit museums to see what currency once looked like. And there, in a glass case, rests a 2017p Lincoln cent. Its copper glow has darkened with age, but its form is perfect, and its message still clear. A small card beneath it reads, struck in Philadelphia, 2017, the first U.S. penny to bear the P mint mark. Commemorating 225 years of the United States Mint, visitors lean close, marveling not just at the coin, but at the idea that humans once trusted metal to hold meaning. They see Lincoln's profile and recognize him not only as a president but as a symbol of conscience and unity. And they understand, perhaps for the first time, that money was never merely about trade, it was about trust. About shared belief. About the collective imagination of a people who could look at a small piece of copper and agree, this means something. The 2017p continues to carry that meaning forward, even as it sleeps in our change jars and collections. Its story reminds us that nothing small is ever truly insignificant. That sometimes, the greatest symbols are hidden in plain sight, waiting for eyes patient enough to see and hearts open enough to feel. It teaches that value is not only created, it is remembered, preserved, passed on. And in that preservation lies the quiet triumph of humanity, the need to make something that lasts, that speaks beyond its time, that says we were here, and we cared enough to leave a mark. The P on the 2017 cent may stand for Philadelphia, but over time, it has come to stand for something larger, perhaps for permanence, for pride, for people. It is a letter that carries an entire heritage behind it. When the presses struck those billions of coins in 2017, they were not just making currency, they were casting memory into metal. And long after the last cent leaves circulation, that memory will remain. So hold one, if you find it. Look at its gleam. Feel its weight. And know that you are touching history, the pulse of a country that still believes in small beginnings, in quiet endurance, in the beauty of things made to last, because one day, when even memory feels digital, this coin will remind whoever finds it that once, not so long ago, people still believed that even the smallest thing could carry infinite worth. And in that simple truth lies the eternal story of the 2017p Lincoln cent, a whisper of history, a testament of craft, and a promise that meaning, once made, never truly disappears. As the story moves forward through the silence of years, the 2017p Lincoln cent does not simply sit in a drawer or a collector's case, it breathes quietly in the rhythm of the world. Every decade that passes reshapes the way people look at it, every generation finds a new way to understand what it stood for. The small coin that once passed unnoticed through hands and cash registers has become a symbol of how time hides meaning in plain sight. And its coppery reflection, one can almost see the echo of a nation's journey, the progress and the patience, the rise and fall of ideals, the moments of pride and the seasons of doubt. When the Philadelphia Mint first marked that small p under Lincoln's profile, no one imagined that a simple letter would become a signpost of transition, a reminder that even an era of automation and speed paused, for just one moment, to honor its own creation. The film of history thickens around every object we make. It clings to things that survive, coating them in layers of story. And the 2017 p-cent carries a very particular layer. It represents the breath between the old and the new. The last whisper before coins became memories, before the language of value changed from weight to code, from touch to tap. Some say that the coin is the simplest form of art a nation produces. It is design made for every hand, sculpture small enough to fit between fingers. The face of Lincoln, the curve of the lettering, the balance of the Union shield, these are not mere engravings but careful decisions born from artists who believed that beauty must also serve purpose. The 2017 p continued that artistic tradition, quietly refining it for a generation that often forgot to look closely. To truly see the coin is to slow down, to let your eyes trace its edges, to notice the crisp line between copper plating and zinc core, to feel the faint ridges that speak of mechanical precision and human patience. Those ridges hold the story of the dies that pressed them, enormous steel cylinders that met thousands of tons of force, repeating their strike millions of times until their own edges dulled and were replaced. Every coin is a perfect child of pressure and patience. It is easy to overlook the choreography behind its creation, the furnaces that heat the metal to exact temperature, the coils that roll and slice it into blanks, the annealing ovens that soften each disc before its moment of birth. Then the feed lines carry them to the press, where the dies kiss them into existence, one strike, one impression, one new face of Lincoln gleaming in red. For a brief second, that coin is perfect. No scratches, no marks, no wear. Only the silent pride of craftsmanship, and then it travels. It passes from machines into bags, from bags into boxes, from boxes into banks, from banks into hands. That is the great journey of every cent, from art to artifact. The mint gives it life, but people give it meaning. A child spends it on candy, a worker drops it in a jar, a collector finds it in change and looks closer. In that moment of recognition, the cent becomes something else, a story rediscovered. The 2017 p carries an additional layer of wonder because of its rarity in meaning, not in number. Billions exist, yet it feels rare because it holds emotion. It marked the Mint's 225th anniversary, a quiet celebration of endurance. The Philadelphia Mint, the oldest in the United States, had produced coins for over 2 centuries without ever placing its own initial on the penny. That year, it chose to honor itself, modestly, discreetly, with a single letter. That choice spoke volumes. It was not vanity but recognition, a gesture to the artisans, engineers, and dreamers whose unseen work had defined American coinage since 1792. The P was a thank you, cast in metal. A reminder that history is not built by governments alone but by the steady hands of those who keep tradition alive. Numismatists recognized the significance immediately. They knew that this was no ordinary cent. It would be the only year the Philadelphia Mint would mark the penny with its initial. It was a once-in-history experiment, both nostalgic and progressive. That is why collectors began to protect them, not for profit alone, but for preservation. They sensed that the coin captured something fleeting, the final intersection between memory and modernity. Some of those preserved cents began to reach legendary status among enthusiasts. A few, flawless and radiant in their original red brilliance, were graded by professional services as perfect examples. Their surfaces reflected light like molten copper, a frozen moment of mint perfection. To hold one was to hold the very idea of precision, but beyond perfection, there were stories of mystery, reports of experimental strikes, of coins that showed unusual brightness, of minor variations in plating that seemed to shift color under certain light. Collectors debated, studied, argued, and dreamed. The 2017 P had become more than an object, it had become an obsession, a riddle for minds who loved the dance between history and chance, and as the years passed, a new kind of mythology grew. Online forums, documentaries, and whispers among coin enthusiasts spoke of exceptional examples, coins so pristine, or so rare in detail, that their value climbed from pennies to thousands, even to legendary sums whispered as 1 million, 2 million, beyond imagination. The exact number mattered less than the idea that the smallest things, once overlooked, could suddenly be recognized as treasures. There is a beautiful irony there, that something created to symbolize the lowest denomination of value became, in the hearts of many, priceless. It echoes a truth older than money itself: value is not born of material alone but of meaning. What people decide to treasure becomes treasure. The 2017 p-cent reminds us of that truth every time we look at it. Its worth may be measured in dollars by the market, but its significance is measured in emotion, in continuity, in the strange human urge to hold on to small proofs that we existed. Each coin, even the most ordinary, carries a fragment of that collective soul, and so the documentary lingers now on the faces of people across decades: a mint worker, gray-haired, watching the press with quiet pride, a child turning a penny over under sunlight, marveling at its shine, a collector under a desk lamp, inspecting edges through a magnifying lens, a teacher using the coin to explain the concept of value to a classroom. They are all connected by one thing, a shared belief that even the smallest pieces of the past are worth keeping. The penny is not a fortune, but it tells the story of fortune, how it is made, lost, and remembered. It is the first coin most Americans ever hold and perhaps the last they ever stop caring about. And the 2017 P is a final heartbeat in that long lineage, a farewell whispered in metal. As we drift deeper into the narrative, it becomes clear that this story is not just about a coin. It is about us. Our relationship to creation, to time, to memory. The 2017 P is our mirror, reminding us that what we make reflects what we are, that the act of minting a coin is also the act of minting identity. Every clang of the press was a declaration that craftsmanship still matters, that precision is still beauty, that even the smallest detail deserves respect. And that, perhaps, is the quiet legacy the 2017 P leaves behind, a lesson in humility and endurance, for the coin does not demand attention. It simply exists, steadfast and silent. It will outlast us all, lying in boxes, buried in fields, hidden between floorboards, resting in museum cases. Centuries later, when our names are forgotten, someone will still find one, brush away the dust, and see the faint shimmer of Lincoln's face. They will wonder who we were, what we believed in, and why we cared so much about a small circle of copper, and if they listen closely enough, they will hear it speak, softly, but clearly, telling the story of a time when people still made things not just to use, but to remember. The 2017 P Lincoln cent is more than a coin. It is a sentence in the language of civilization, a whisper of the eternal desire to leave proof behind. It says, we were here. We built. We believed, and in that whisper, it becomes not merely money, but memory, not merely copper, but legacy. There is a moment in every story when the familiar becomes extraordinary, when the ordinary thing reveals a secret you never expected it to hold. The 2017 P Lincoln cent reached that moment not in a museum or an auction hall, but in the quiet corners of collectors' rooms, in the hands of people who could see beauty where others saw only pocket change. The story spread slowly at first, through whispers, through videos, through the careful excitement of numismatists who knew what they had found. In online forums and trade shows, the same question began to echo: could this little coin, struck by the billions, truly hold a hidden value, a secret variation, a mystery still waiting to be understood? And soon, people began to look closer. Under magnifying glasses, microscopes, and camera lenses, the 2017 P cent revealed more than expected. Tiny die cracks, subtle doubling, rare plating variations, these small differences ignited an entire movement of curiosity. It was as if the coin itself had invited the world to see again, to rediscover the power of paying attention. Collectors began to hunt. Roll by roll, box by box, they searched for the exceptional piece, the one untouched by time, the one struck just perfectly, the one that glowed slightly brighter under light. They searched in coin rolls bought from banks, in jars saved by grandparents, in spare change forgotten in drawers. Some found nothing but the satisfaction of the search itself. Others, by luck or fate, found something rare, a mint-state gem that told a story of perfection against all odds. Those discoveries began to make headlines in the world of collectors. A few examples of the 2017 P cent, preserved in pristine, uncirculated red condition, began to sell for astonishing prices. A coin that cost a single cent to make was now valued at hundreds, sometimes thousands, and rumors spread of pieces graded so high, so flawless, that their worth reached into the unimaginable. The stories of coins sold or insured for more than $1 million, the whispers of private collectors who would never part with theirs for any sum. But behind those numbers, behind the glitter of price tags, lay a deeper truth, one that could not be measured in money. The real worth of the 2017 P cent was not in how much it sold for, but in what it represented, a rare intersection between human story and national history, between the touch of hands and the passage of time. When people looked at the coin, they saw themselves reflected in it, their patience, their curiosity, their hunger to find meaning in small things. It became a mirror, polished by attention and love. And that is why its story grew so far beyond numismatics. The coin was no longer just for collectors, it was for dreamers, historians, artists, and anyone who understood that legacy often hides in humble forms. Imagine the scene: a small desk under a soft lamp, the world outside asleep. A collector opens a paper roll of cents and begins to examine each one. One coin catches the light differently. The copper glows deeper, the strike is sharper. The tiny letter P beneath the date glints like a secret signature. In that quiet moment, the collector's heart stirs, not because of wealth, but because they have touched something eternal, something that connects them directly to history. That feeling, that spark, is what turns the ordinary into legend. The 2017 P became legendary not because of what it cost, but because of what it meant. It was the first penny ever to bear the mark of the Philadelphia Mint, a single letter that broke with 2 centuries of silent tradition. The first and the last of its kind. 1 year only, never again. That uniqueness gave it power. Every collector knows that time defines rarity more than quantity. Billions may exist today, but one day, far in the future, when most have been lost, melted, or forgotten, only a few perfect examples will remain, silent survivors of a vanished age. And when that day comes, the 2017 P will not just be rare, it will be sacred, a relic of a nation's age of transition. The markets moved in waves, but the fascination never faded. Videos, articles, and discussions spread across the world, each retelling the story with awe. People who had never cared about coins before began checking their change, inspired by the idea that something so common could be worth so much. For a brief, beautiful time, a single penny made people look again at the smallest things in life. It reminded them that value often hides in plain sight. Economists might have dismissed the excitement as hype, but those who understood knew better. This was not about speculation, it was about wonder. It was about a nation remembering what it felt like to discover something real in a world drowning in digital illusion. The 2017 p-cent became a symbol of authenticity, a piece of truth you could hold in your hand. In the glow of that rediscovery, older collectors began to share stories with the young. They told of the great coins of the past, the 1909 SVDB, the 1955 double die, the 1943 copper penny, and how each of those coins once carried a spark of surprise, a mystery that united people across time. And they told them that the 2017 p, though modern, belonged in that same lineage. It was proof that magic still existed in minting, that history still had new chapters to write. The United States Mint itself could not have predicted how this experiment would resonate. What began as a quiet commemoration of its 225th anniversary had turned into one of the most beloved modern issues in memory. It reminded the mint, too, of its own purpose, not merely to produce money, but to create symbols that connected people to their story, and that connection only deepened with time. As years passed, the 2017 p became a conversation between generations. Parents handed them to children. Collectors sealed them in holders, wrote dates and notes, preserved them like family heirlooms. Some were given as graduation gifts, others as good luck charms, others buried in time capsules. The coin had crossed the line between circulation and sentiment. It had become something to protect, not to spend. In the grand arc of human history, this transformation is not small. Every civilization leaves behind objects that tell its story: clay tablets, carved stones, painted vases, and coins. The 2017 p-cent will one day be one of those artifacts, a message from our time to the future. It will tell them that in the early 21st century, amid machines and markets, people still cared about art, legacy, and memory, and that is perhaps the most beautiful legacy a coin can leave. Long after its monetary system changes, long after paper and metal give way to numbers and screens, the 2017 p will endure because it carries within it the human need to remember. Its copper surface may tarnish, its edges may dull, but the idea it represents will never fade. It is the idea that worth begins small, that meaning survives through care, and that beauty, once made, never truly disappears. So when we speak of the 2017 p being worth millions, we speak not only of market value, but of the priceless worth of human wonder, of the way something tiny can hold eternity in its reflection. The number, the price, the headline, all of that fades. What remains is the story, and stories, unlike coins, cannot be melted down. They only grow brighter with time. The 2017 p Lincoln cent, born of metal, pressure, and patience, has now become more than history, it has become myth. A small circle of copper carrying within it the vastness of a people's memory. Time has a way of polishing memory just as surely as circulation polishes a coin. The years move forward, and the world that once held billions of 2017 p-cents begins to change. Cash registers fade into touchscreens, wallets become icons on glowing phones, the ring of coin against coin grows rarer each year. Yet somewhere, in drawers and jars, in albums and velvet trays, the little cent endures, keeping its quiet watch over the passing of eras. In the evenings, collectors still take their lamps to their desks and open small boxes that smell faintly of cardboard and metal. They lift the clear holders that trap each coin in time, tilting them toward the light so the surfaces flare with orange fire. The 2017 p shines back at them like an ember from a world that is slowly cooling. Each reflection is a story, of mint workers long retired, of children who once saved pennies for dreams that have already come true or quietly vanished, of a mint mark added for one single year that became the punctuation at the end of a century-old sentence. Outside those rooms, the city of Philadelphia still hums. The mint still stands, its press is slower now, its tours quieter, but the air still smells faintly of oil and metal. A visitor might walk through its halls and see a display case holding a perfect 2017 p-cent under glass. The plaque beside it says little, only the date, the reason for the mark, the number struck, but those who stand before it rarely leave unmoved. For some, it recalls the first penny they ever held; for others, it feels like a goodbye to something tangible. Numismatists continue to write about it, weighing its meaning as much as its metal. They note the official composition: 97.5% zinc, 2.5% copper plating, a diameter of 19.05 millimeters, a weight of 2.5 grams, and then they move beyond numbers, describing instead the emotion of that small p. They write that it stands for presence, the moment when the Philadelphia Mint, after 2 centuries of silence, finally signed its name to the most ordinary coin in America. In auction catalogs, the 2017 p appears beside its ancestors, the 1909 SVDB, the 1955 double die, the 1943 copper cent. Its listing is modest, but the commentary around it is rich. Experts speak of it as a turning point, the coin that reminded a digital generation to look closely again. High-grade examples still sell for extraordinary sums, but even the most worn piece, its surface is dulled by countless pockets, carries a quiet dignity. The market price may rise and fall, but its symbolic value remains fixed, steady as Lincoln's gazed. Sometimes, a story surfaces of discovery. A metal detectorist finds one buried near an old park, still shining after years underground. A child pulling weeds in a backyard notices a glint in the soil and runs inside to wash it off, only to find the date 2017 and the tiny P beneath. The family searches the internet, learns its history, and keeps it. Another coin begins its second life, not as currency, but as a keepsake. The coin's legend spreads quietly across borders. Collectors in other countries add it to their albums, curious about this American cent that broke tradition. In Europe, Asia, and South America, numismatic journals describe it as a symbol of the modern minting era, an object both common and singular. It becomes a metaphor in articles about change, permanence, and the artistry hidden inside mass production, and as its fame grows, so does the conversation about value itself. What is a cent worth when inflation has stripped its purchasing power? What is a rare cent worth when its material is almost valueless? Philosophers and economists find themselves circling the same thought, that worth lies not in the metal, but in the meaning we give it. The 2017 P cent becomes a classroom example, a story told to students about perception, memory, and the invisible economies of belief. Late at night, documentary filmmakers capture slow shots of pennies tumbling across a dark surface, the clinking echo stretching into silence. A voice speaks over the images, gentle and sure, saying that this coin, like all symbols, is a mirror of the people who made it. It shows their need to remember, their urge to leave a mark that time cannot erase. The light catches the word liberty across Lincoln's shoulder, and for a moment it feels like the word belongs not just to him, but to everyone who ever touched that coin. Museums begin to preserve rolls of uncirculated 2017 P cents in climate-controlled rooms. Future historians label them as the first pennies of the mint's 225th year and the last of a great national era of coinage. Beside them lie photographs of the mint floor, workers in protective gloves, sheets of planchets glowing red under the forge lights. Children on school trips press their faces to the glass, seeing their reflections mingled with Lincoln's, and somewhere, the faint clang of a press seems to echo through time. The cent continues its slow drift through circulation, appearing less often but always noticed when it does. Someone at a cafe receives one in change, glances at the date, and pauses just long enough to feel that faint, inexplicable connection to everything that came before. Then they slip it into a pocket, unable to spend it. The cycle of keeping continues, and in this way the 2017 P Lincoln cent becomes more than history. It becomes habit, memory, and emotion woven together. It carries the idea that progress does not erase the past, that even in a cashless age, the smallest coin can still hold a world of feeling. Each one is a tiny time capsule, whispering across generations, remember the hands that made me, remember the dreams I carried, remember that worth begins small. The story of the 2017 P Lincoln cent does not end in a museum or an auction hall. It ends where it began, in the hands of ordinary people. Someone, somewhere, still turns it over between their fingers, still sees the faint gleam of copper in the steady face of Lincoln looking back through time. The year stamped on it is fixed, but the meaning keeps moving. It reminds us that a nation is built not only through its grand monuments, but through the quiet rhythm of its smallest creations. A coin is not only a tool of exchange, it is a piece of language, a word spoken in metal. The 2017 P cent spoke softly, yet it carried an entire conversation about continuity, humility, and pride. When the Philadelphia Mint placed its initial beneath the date, it wrote its own name into the story of America. 2 centuries of anonymous work suddenly signed with a single letter. That letter became a bridge between centuries, between the people who forged the first coins in 1792 and those who pressed the 2017 pieces in the glare of modern machinery. And though the presses have long since cooled, the echo of that decision still rings, a small sound of gratitude cast into copper. In the quiet of night, if you hold one to the light, you can see the reflection of your own face mingled with Lincoln's. It is as if the past and present share the same space for a heartbeat. That is what money once did best, it linked strangers across time. Each cent passed through hands that will never meet, yet each hand left something behind, warmth, fingerprint, intention. Someday, long after this century has slipped into history, a child will find a 2017 P penny at the bottom of an old box. They will wonder why it looks different, why it has a letter where others do not. Someone will tell them the story, that in one brief year, the Philadelphia Mint marked the 225th anniversary of its founding by signing its smallest creation. The child will listen, nod, and place it back in the box, not because of what it can buy, but because of what it represents, and so the chain of remembrance will continue. Economists will write that it was worth 1 cent, historians will write that it was worth far more, collectors will keep searching for the flawless specimens, for the errors and the proofs, for the tiny differences that make one piece unique, but the rest of us will keep a single worn coin in a drawer, just to know that something real still exists. That, perhaps, is the quiet triumph of the 2017 P Lincoln cent. It outlived its usefulness but not its meaning. It proved that beauty can be ordinary, that memory can fit inside a circle barely 2 centimeters wide, and it whispered, to anyone willing to listen, that permanence is made not of gold or silver, but of care. The last shot fades slowly, a single penny resting on a wooden table, sunlight crawling across its surface until the copper burns with color. The voice says only this: every generation leaves something behind. Sometimes it is a monument, sometimes A song of ours left a coin small, simple, stamped with the face of a man who believed in unity. It weighs only 2.5 grams, yet it carries the weight of everything we hope to remember. The camera lingers, the light fades, the music thins to silence, and in that silence, the 2017 P. Lincoln cent remains.